I had always prided myself on being calm under pressure, but tonight was testing every ounce of that patience. The coffee in front of me sat untouched, its metallic scent lingering in the air, cloying, almost suffocating. My name is Christina, and at 29, I never imagined that I would find myself questioning whether my own husband was conspiring against me. 3 years of marriage, and now, at this very moment, I was starting to wonder if I'd been blind to the red flags all along. We were at a small bistro, a cozy restaurant in downtown Nashville where we had met to celebrate my dream job interview. Mr. Norris, the CEO of a growing tech company, was sitting across from me. His sharp eyes flicked between me and my resume, nodding occasionally, but his focus was divided. He kept checking his watch, glancing at his phone, as if waiting for something else to happen. My nerves were shot, but I knew this was my big break. If I could just hold it together for a few more hours, I could finally start building the life I'd always dreamed of. But then, I saw Jody. She was the waitress at our table, and there was something off about her. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but the way she moved, her anxious energy, it was as if she were trying too hard. As she approached, I smelled something sharp in the air, something metallic. A chill ran down my spine. "Good evening, ma'am," she said with a forced smile, setting the coffee down in front of me. "How's everything going?" I forced a smile back, but my mind was racing. "Everything's fine, thank you." As she walked away, I couldn't help but notice the way she kept glancing over at me. Was she watching me? No, that didn't make sense. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. I picked up the coffee cup, bringing it to my lips. But before I could sip, a sudden, sharp memory flashed in my mind. The tea incident last month. The same metallic taste had been in the tea Jody had served me. The doctors couldn't explain why I had ended up in urgent care. But now, with the coffee in front of me, I had an unsettling thought. Was this the same thing? Had Jody done something to it? I quickly put the cup down, feeling the rush of panic begin to set in. I glanced at Mr. Norris, trying to steady my breathing, but he was too busy on his phone to notice. My pulse was racing now, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. "Everything okay, Christina?" Mr. Norris asked, his voice cutting through the tension. I could feel his eyes on me now, sensing my discomfort. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just a bit nervous, I guess. I'm really excited about this position." His eyes softened slightly. "You should be. From what I've seen in your resume, you're exactly the type of person I'm looking for." The tension in the air didn't let up. I was fighting to keep my composure. But Jody's figure kept reappearing in my peripheral vision. She was standing across the room, talking to another waiter, but it was the way she kept glancing at me that sent my heart racing. Something wasn't right, and I could feel it in my bones. As Mr. Norris continued asking me questions about leadership and my experience managing teams, I found myself distracted. Every word he spoke seemed to get drowned out by the heavy silence between us and the strange behavior of Jody. She was moving back and forth, seemingly running in and out of the kitchen. I couldn't ignore it anymore. "Excuse me," I said, standing up abruptly. "I need to take a quick call." Mr. Norris looked up from his phone, clearly surprised. "Of course, no problem. I'll be here." I walked toward the restaurant's study, a small room at the back where I could catch my breath and clear my head. I hadn't expected this. My nerves were all over the place, and now, with the coffee lingering in my throat, I felt my stomach churn. I couldn't shake the feeling that Jody was somehow involved in all of this. Had she known something about the tea? Was she working with my husband, James? As I stood in the study, I glanced at my phone, pretending to check an email, but my eyes kept drifting back to the dining room. From the doorway, I saw Jody move back toward the table, this time with a smirk on her face. She was approaching Mr. Norris's side of the table, and it was in that moment I saw it. Her eyes met mine, and she didn't look away. A slow, sinister grin spread across her face. It was then that I made my decision. I had to know. I had to find out if this was all connected, if I was just imagining things, or if I had uncovered something darker. I walked back into the dining area. "Excuse me," I said loudly, making my voice firm. "There seems to be something wrong with the coffee you gave me." Mr. Norris raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Is everything all right?" "It's not the coffee," I said, staring at Jody. "It's your employee here. She's been acting strange all night." Jody's smile faltered. She started to protest, but I wasn't going to let her off that easy. "You've been keeping an eye on me, haven't you?" I said, my voice low but steady. "You've been working with my husband. I'm not stupid." The room went silent. Mr. Norris looked between me and Jody, clearly trying to figure out what was happening. Jody took a step back, suddenly looking very uncomfortable. "I don't know what you're talking about," Jody stammered. I didn't let up. "This isn't about the coffee anymore, Jody. This is about everything. The tea, the strange incidents. I've been getting sick, and I know it's no coincidence." Jody opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She was panicking now, her eyes darting to the door. "It's you, isn't it? You've been tampering with my food and drinks all along," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. Mr. Norris stood up, looking more concerned now. "What is going on here?" "I'm sorry," Jody muttered, taking a step back. "I didn't want to. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I couldn't believe what I was hearing." "So it was you. You've been poisoning me?" Jody's face was pale. "It wasn't supposed to hurt you, just make you sick enough to stay out of the way for the interview. I just needed this job," she said, looking at Mr. Norris, who was standing in shock. I took a deep breath, finally realizing the truth. This wasn't just about bad service. This was a plan, a conspiracy, something far worse. "I don't care what your reasons were," I said, walking away from the table. "You've crossed a line." Mr. Norris turned to Jody, his face hardening. "You need to leave," he said coldly. Now, I turned to face him. "I'm done here." As Jody scurried away, I walked toward the exit. It felt like I was walking out of a nightmare. As I walked out of the restaurant, my hands were shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't believe what had just happened. My heart raced, and my mind struggled to process the conversation, the accusations, and the way everything had unraveled so quickly. I had always prided myself on staying calm under pressure, but tonight had shattered that composure. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and most of all, terrified. I stepped out into the cool Nashville evening air, taking deep breaths to steady myself. The last few hours had felt like a whirlwind, and now I was left trying to make sense of it all. I couldn't help but wonder if I had been blind to the signs all along. My husband James? Was he involved? Had Jody really been working with him? My mind raced with questions, none of them with clear answers. I leaned against my car, the headlights from passing vehicles blurring as I tried to gather my thoughts. I had to get to the bottom of this. I couldn't let this go, not without knowing the truth. My whole life had been on the line tonight. My career, my future. But it wasn't just about the job anymore. It was about the people who had been part of my life, the people who I thought cared for me, and how easily they had turned on me. A loud knock on my car window snapped me out of my thoughts. I jumped, my heart racing. I turned to find Mr. Norris standing there, his expression serious. I rolled down the window, still trying to shake off the shock. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice surprisingly gentle. I nodded, but I didn't trust my own voice. "I don't know. This is all too much. I thought I was just here for an interview, but now everything's changed." Mr. Norris's face softened, and he leaned against the car, crossing his arms. "Christina, listen, I'm sorry for what happened in there. You didn't deserve that. Jody, she's been a problem for a while now. I should have caught it sooner. But what happened tonight? That wasn't your fault." I was still reeling from the confrontation, but his words gave me a moment of pause. You didn't have to come after me like that. I know I'm not a part of your company, but you were being so rude." "I know," he interrupted, his voice laced with regret. "It was wrong of me to let it get out of hand like that. But the truth is, you were the most qualified person for this position. And after everything I saw tonight, I can see the kind of leader you are." I shook my head, not fully understanding. "What do you mean? After everything that's happened?" Mr. Norris sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've had my share of issues with employees, but I've never seen anyone take control like you did tonight. Jody is a mess, and I should have seen it coming. I should have paid more attention. But you were calm. You were collected. And when it came down to it, you handled yourself with dignity. That's exactly what I need in a leader." I was still processing everything, but his words had a weight to them that made me stop and think. "Are you saying I still have a chance at the job?" He smiled slightly, a small but genuine expression of appreciation. "You still have a chance, Christina. In fact, I'm offering you the position. You're more than qualified. You're exactly what I've been looking for." I couldn't believe it. My heart skipped a beat. This was the moment I had worked so hard for. And yet, the emotions swirling inside of me were more complex than I could have imagined. I had just been through one of the worst experiences of my life, and now I was being offered my dream job. My mind swirled with questions, doubts, and a sense of relief. But there was one thing I needed to ask. What about Jody? What happens to her? Mr. Norris's expression hardened, and he sighed again. "She's done. I'll be talking to her, of course, but I'm afraid her actions tonight have cost her not just this job, but any future in this field. You can't just treat people like that, especially not in a leadership role." I didn't want to feel satisfaction at Jody's downfall, but I couldn't help it. What she had done to me, to my dreams, to my career, it was unforgivable. "Thank you," I whispered, still trying to process everything. "Thank you for believing in me." Mr. Norris nodded, offering a small smile. "You earned it, Christina. Now, let's get you started on the right foot. We'll discuss the details tomorrow." As he turned and walked away, I stayed where I was, my hands resting on the steering wheel. It felt like my whole world had shifted in one night. I had faced betrayal, humiliation, and uncertainty. And somehow, I had come out the other side stronger. I took a deep breath and started my car, pulling out into the quiet streets of Nashville. This was only the beginning. I wasn't going to let anyone stand in the way of my success. Jody had tried to break me, but she had failed. And now, I was going to make sure I succeeded, no matter what. The lesson I had learned was simple. Never let anyone's actions dictate your future. People may try to bring you down, but it's how you rise from those challenges that defines who you are. I had survived. As I walked out of the restaurant that night, my thoughts were a whirlwind. The evening had started with so much promise. An interview for my dream job, a chance to prove myself. But it had quickly spiraled into a nightmare. One where I faced not only the humiliation of being dismissed as just a waitress, but also the shocking betrayal from someone I had once considered a colleague, even a friend. But now, as the cool night air hit my face, I realized something profound. I had made it through. Despite everything that had happened, I was still standing, and that's what mattered. The job offer, the validation from Mr. Norris, and even the public confrontation with Jody had all led to a breakthrough for me. My resilience had been tested, and I had passed with flying colors. I couldn't help but feel a sense of bittersweet satisfaction as I thought about what Jody had said. She had tried to break me, but I had turned her efforts into fuel for my own success. I wasn't just qualified for this position, I was the right fit for it. A leader who didn't rule with fear, but with compassion. The irony wasn't lost on me that Jody, with all her bravado and cruel attitude, had failed, while I had triumphed by simply being myself. But there was no time to dwell on it. The future awaited, and I wasn't about to let anyone steal that from me. The world could be cruel, yes, but it could also be full of opportunity for those who had the courage to seize it. As I sat down in my car and started the engine, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Norris, confirming our meeting for the next day. I smiled to myself, feeling the weight of the events from the night slowly lifting. I had earned this. I had proven that no matter how many people tried to tear me down, I could rise above. And as for Jody, well, I wasn't going to waste any more of my energy on her. She had already shown me what kind of person she was. She was consumed by her own ego, blinded by her ambition. In the end, it had cost her everything. Her cruelty had led to her own downfall. I paused for a moment, reflecting on what I had learned. The world doesn't always reward kindness. Sometimes it punishes those who are too trusting, too naive. But what it doesn't teach you is the importance of standing firm, of believing in yourself when no one else does. I had trusted my instincts, and they had guided me to this moment. The lesson was clear. No one can define your worth but you. Life is full of setbacks and challenges, but it's how you choose to rise from them that truly matters. And as for Jody, her cruelty would catch up with her in ways she couldn't even imagine. It always does. As I drove off into the night, I made a silent promise to myself. This was just the beginning. I had survived the storm, and now it was time to thrive. I would rise to the challenge ahead and show the world exactly what I was made of. To all of you out there facing challenges, setbacks, or even betrayal, know this: your journey is yours to define. Don't let anyone steal your dreams or tell you who you should be. Stay true to yourself. Keep pushing forward. And remember that your success is in your hands. And as for Jody, well, I'd leave her to deal with the consequences of her own actions. Life has a way of balancing things out, even when you least expect it. So, what do you think? Have you ever faced a situation where someone tried to bring you down, only to find that it was their own actions that led to their downfall? How did you rise above it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Feel free to share in the comments. Let's start a conversation about overcoming adversity and the lessons we can all learn from it.